The year is 2000, the turn of the century, and a new series of incredibly corny teen movies have been brought to the forefront. Bring It On. Bring It On is a series of seven movies, all related in some way or another to cheerleading. And I found out that there are 7 of them. Who'd have thought? Why don't I take that upon myself? I watched all 7 Bring It On movies, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to rank them and see if any of them are actually worthwhile. Probably not, but hey, I love garbage, so that's nothing new here. But before we get started, hello. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up, home skillet biscuit? I am Kendall. Happy Saturday. You may have noticed I'm filming in an unidentified hotel room. That's because I'm currently on holiday. In case you were wondering, this will not be our usual setup. This is not a new apartment, not some new home. I'm in LA. But before flying over from Michigan, I watched all these movies, and I just can't keep this with me. I have to torture you guys. Buckle up, Buttercup. We're going on a ride. Hello everyone, this is Admiral Kennie, and today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit delivery service that offers you fresh, delicious, and healthy meals delivered straight to the comfort of your own home. Pre-portioned, pre-shopped for ingredients. You can go to the grocery store less often because God knows I don't like it. You're limiting your food waste because you only get what you need for the meal. And you could save time because most of your meals can be done in about 30 minutes or less. And that's often less time than it takes to go to a grocery store to get the items yourself. And most importantly, it tastes delicious. You can get something to get you out of recipe ruts, and you can find favorites. I have my favorites. I love a good pork and rice bowl. I love their soups, especially because it's, dreary winter season here in Michigan. They also have like add-ons that I feel don't get enough praise because their breakfasts, they're like egg bites. I'd show them to you, but I ate them. I also tried the chocolate chip muffin, would also show it to you, but I ate it. And if you would like to try their breakfast, by the way, you can go to HelloFresh.com and use code KennieFree to get free breakfast for life, baby. That's 1 breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. And again, that's use code KennieFree for free breakfast for life, baby. Big thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery. Prior to this video, I had actually had very little interaction with Bring It On. I had seen the first one, came out in 2000. I was 5. I had seen it maybe once, and it was fine, but I definitely needed a refresher. I didn't remember much of it. It wasn't like a cornerstone of my childhood by any means. We revisited that, and then all of the sequels are completely brand new territory for me, baby. And it was definitely a labor of love and pain. I think I'm actually gonna be down with guilt tripping you guys. Please like this video. I did this for you. A24, hire me, baby. I can do a murder scream and I can cry on command, kinda, sorta. Put me in the right headspace. I got you. So I'm gonna talk about the movies in order and see how this over 20 years of train wreck has progressed to this point. So of course, we have to start off with the original Bring It On. Bring It On stars Kirsten Dunst, and she plays the main character, who is a girl named Torrance. I will say, this series has a tendency to give little white girls really cool names. I like the name Torrance. And she's a senior in high school. She has a very idyllic life as a cheerleader, and her cheer team has won 6 consecutive nationals trophies. So they're very much so on the top of their game. And this year, she's going to be the head cheerleader now that their old head cheerleader, who was nicknamed Big Red, is graduating. So she's passing the herky at whatever. I don't know nothing about you. Anyway, so her first task as head cheerleader is to hold auditions for our new open spaces now that people have graduated out. This is where we meet Missy, a newcomer to the school, a skilled emo bad girl gymnast. Is that a subculture I'm not aware of? I don't know. But she's from a rougher part of California, some part of LA, and her brother come to the school. His name is Cliff. So from the jump, it's pretty clear that Torrance and Cliff are into each other. They definitely have some chemistry, but the big issue at hand is that Torrance is not single. She has a boyfriend who's a freshman in college right now. He sucks, by the way. He's awful, but he does exist, and she doesn't know that he's like cheating on her all freshman year, but whatever. But because of that, she does find that her feelings for Cliff are a bit of a conundrum, as you would imagine. But the bigger conundrum, though, that we find out from Missy is that all of the cheer routines they've done have been stolen They're stolen from a virtually unknown inner city school of nothing but black and brown students that apparently Big Red had been stealing cheers from for years at this point. I say that like the movie's 23 years old. You've probably seen it or probably seen some of the pop culture references of it. First one that comes to mind is the Bob's Burgers. Gene joins the wow, that's hard to say. Gene joins the cheer team and they do like the giant pinwheel.
I call it the pig wheel.
It's so dumb. Anyway, these are the East Compton Clovers. A squad, again, that Big Red had been stealing from for years. She'd pop into their practices and their home games and record them and then take those routines back to the white team. I can't think of what their names are, right? The Torreses? Whatever. Their team, and then claim them as theirs when they're like performing on nationals, because the Clovers don't have the money to compete and travel and do all that for nationals. So essentially, they're able to take these with the help of their money and claim it as theirs on an international scale, or at least a national scale, because it's on like ESPN essentially. The captain of the Clovers, who is played by Gabrielle Union, it's so interesting to see baby Gabrielle Union because her skincare, she looks the same, honey. She looks the same. What is she using? I don't know. I'm not opposed to Botox. I plan to do it at some point. I haven't done it yet. I don't need it yet. But when I do, I will be in there like Dolly Parton.
Some tucks and pulls and
yes,
sucks?
Yes, I have, and I'll have some more when I need them.
Really?
Anyway, she's the head coach of the black team, the Clovers. And she explains essentially, yes, we've always had the better cheers. I know you didn't think a white girl came up with "Brr, it's cold in here." But yes, because of their lack of resources, they've just never been able to show the world what they're capable of. And so now Torrance is faced with the realization that their entire greatness or whatever as a team has been completely stolen from disenfranchised students, and she's faced with the conundrum that everything they've done up until this point is a sham. They're like, oh, we don't have enough time to make a new routine, so we're gonna just go with the same routine that we were gonna go with, which is stolen. And the Clover girls come to their home game and shows everybody that they had stolen the routine, and so now, humiliated, they're like, okay, we actually have to make a new routine. The Clovers are able to find a way to get funds to go to nationals this year. And so they're definitely faced with this realization that, oh my God, we have to come up with a new routine because we're both gonna be there. So they decide to enlist the help of a choreographer. This was the only part of the movie that I remembered from childhood. The jazz hands. Those aren't jazz hands. He's a choreographer. He's weird. His name's Sparky. And they enlist his help for some reason they're desperate. So they decide to go to regionals with this choreography, only to find out that 6 other teams had hired Sparky to do this jazz hand routine. Y'all all didn't say this is a bad idea. Okay. And if they weren't defending champions, they would be ultimately disqualified, but because they're able to go to nationals anyway. Long story short, a bunch of drama goes down. Torrance doesn't know she has it in her to be the leader. Cliff finds out that she has a boyfriend, and that obviously rocks some things. She dumps said boyfriend because he sucks. She's able to draw inspiration from Cliff and use that to create an original routine. They end up getting second at nationals, which is only the right thing to do. I found myself not rooting for them at all. I was like, the black and brown girls, yeah, that team, the one you've been stealing from, I think they should get first. And they did. But they end it with the Tauruses getting second place, and they leave with a very solid mutual respect for each other. The storyline's been parodied over and over again. The first one that comes to mind for me is the Bob Burger thing. But as for this movie, despite like the campy corniness, it is very campy, it's very corny. In many ways, I feel like this movie was before its time in a way that maybe it doesn't get as much credit for as it should. More so than it is like, you know, flips and tricks and teenage stuff, teenage stereotypes and tropes and whatnot. I think more than it really gets credit for, it's about race, it's about class, appropriation of black art. There's certainly some like questionable moments in regards to like sexuality and particularly homosexuality and how they handle that. But it was also 2000. Like, I don't expect it to be that like in every way ahead of its time, but I have zippers on my knees. It's a pocket in my knees. It's a pocket. There's a scene where Torrance goes in and offers to pay them so that they can go to nationals, and they decide to turn it down, wanting to like pull themselves up by their bootstraps. I honestly think that entire scene could have went, but I get that the purpose of it is to present Torrance as someone who is honorable, but also guilt-ridden. Like she's a very guilty character. And I think that complexity gets very overshadowed in the overall outrageousness of the movie, because it's also like a cheesy teen rom-com drama thing that has a lot of flips in it. And again, overall a pretty guilty movie at its core, being that the movie is still told largely from the white, the privileged perspectives, who are kind of stricken by this knowledge that they had no idea that they're innately benefiting unjustly from the work of Black and brown people. So it feels like the movie is ultimately meant to be a bit of a restorative statement. And again, I wouldn't call it perfect by any means, but I would say it's a lot more nuanced than I think the movie gets credit for. I think it gets a lot more credit just for being like campy and fluffy and teen and stupid, honestly. Don't get me wrong, it is all of those things. Like it's absolutely asinine at times, which is something that only gets stronger in the sequels. You know, I left it with a newfound respect for it, honestly. And is it good? Arguable. It's not bad. I think especially compared to the rest of this shit, it's actually a masterpiece. But spoiler, who's gonna be on the top of that pyramid? Okay. But yeah, after this film, subsequently, it seems like each film loses more and more of what little depth there was, and they soon become this shit. Quick lunch break. Branzino and papilote. They also have pappardelle. And you trying to charge me $38 for potatoes and olives? $25 for bread and prosciutto. I hate it here. They have burrata. Spent 15 minutes of my filming time deciding what I'm getting for lunch. Anyway, the second movie is called Bring It On Again, aptly named, and I feel like the best naming wise. Granted, I do think Bring It On and On and On and On and On and On would have also sufficed. But with that said, I will say that Bring It On Again is one of the most forgettable of all the films. This one is focused on a girl named Whittier. Again, cute white girl name. I like that. And it takes place in college, where she's a freshman in college and she's like interested in joining their collegiate team. She joins the squad with her black friend Monica, whom she apparently knew prior to this, like, assuming they went to high school or something together. Now, this college is suffering from budget cuts, and they decide to cut the budget of essentially every extracurricular club outside of football and cheering, because apparently those are the two things that brings any money into the school. This creates a lot of disgruntled students who are a part of other things, other organizations, and this will become a bit of a source of some comedy, if you will, going forth, if you at all think this movie is funny. But when the cheer captain Tina comes between Whittier and Monica and her new love interest. Whose new love interest? Whittier's new love interest. This script just confused me. I wrote the script. Oh my god. But Monica and Whittier decide to split off from the cheer team when their captain Tina comes between Whittier and the boy that she likes, who's a DJ named Derek. And apparently in this world, being a DJ is less than scum. So they decide to leave the squad and create their own like ragtag team of cheerleaders from the disgruntled students of other organizations. So the movie ends up culminating into a competition between the two teams to see who will represent the college at nationals, because they can only have one team do so. The two teams face off against each other, with the ragtag team of course winning. We saw this coming. It's, you know, all about teamwork and bringing together unconventional people and this movie is notably different in its tonality. I guess apolitical is the word I'm looking for. It doesn't seem to engage in a lot of the thorny conversations around race outside of there just being black people there. If anything, this movie seems to have a tinge of early quote unquote anti-woke sentiment. But yeah, I felt like this movie didn't actually have anything to say. It was just made because the first one was. if that makes sense. Like, the first movie seemed to have a purpose, and this one certainly missed the mark on that. And not that that's anything to malign or say is a bad thing, but it wasn't even entertaining. Third movie, Bring It On All or Nothing, came out in 2006, 2 years after the last movie. And prior to watching this movie, I had only seen very recently some clips of a dance-off debacle that made me viscerally uncomfortable.
That's it. Come on. Yeah.
And in some ways maybe inspired this video. But apparently this movie isn't just the dance-off. There's actually like a whole story. This movie centers around a girl named Brittany Allen, played by Hayden Panettiere. I always say her last name wrong. This movie is a bit of a time capsule. Music-wise, I would say it's one of the better ones because it has all of your favorite pop punk songs from the early 2000s. They got Weezer, Avril Lavigne, Gwen Stefani when she was Japanese. Baby Solange is also in it. She plays somewhat of an antagonist. Baby Rihanna is also in it. So all of these things make me like suck me back to 2006. That along with the almost jarring amount of fat phobia. Like this one more than any of the other ones is like aggressively fat phobic.
If ever there was an argument for bulimia, it's Brianna's ass.
Really sent me back to like being 11 and not feeling like I could understand reality. But as far as the movie itself, this one centers around the conflict of a lily white blonde girl named Brittany who is forced to move to the pop-locking streets of Crenshaw Heights High School, fully equipped with front door breakdancers. And essentially the movie is basically Save the Last Dance. By the way, I have a whole video on Save the Last Dance if you haven't seen it already. I'll link that somewhere. But it would seem by the time we get to this movie, we've definitely lost the plot. Like, certainly lost the plot about white appropriation of black art and culture. While, like, this movie is the complete opposite of that. It's like, essentially a Paris Hilton ends up in the inner city and learns how to step and shabuya roll call and earns the respect of all the Negroes around her in order to impress Rihanna, who's holding a cheer competition for some reason. That, along with a bunch of ill-placed dance breaks, crumping, spontaneous lunchroom step routines. This movie is a mess. My God, I have never so violently recoiled. It was just like a bunch of awkward flirting and the lines, and there's a part where some kid, a black kid, goes like, "You're a rich white girl in Crenshaw Heights. You should be the angriest girl here."
You're a rich white girl stuck here in Crenshaw Heights. Please, you should be the angriest person in.
Not to mention there's just so many terrible lines. We simply do not have time. Long story short, it ends with their cheer team winning the Rihanna thingy in a beehive. It's a mess, but it's the first of many subsequent green screen performances that take place in subsequent movies. I don't know why. Well, it's probably because henceforth we're gonna have a lot of people who are pop stars in some way or another involved with the movies, but more on that later. It's here. $25 glorified ham and cheese sandwich. Oh, that looks gross. They made that look incredibly unappetizing. No. Is the cake pretty? See this big ass plate? And nothing. Bring It On, In It to Win It. 2007. This is the first of the long list of subsequent direct-to-video sequels that'll happen of the Bring It On series. And it really shows in the quality of whatever the this is, probably because it was filmed at the same time and we're very close. It'd have to be very close to the last movie, which they put a lot of money, not in quality, but in like star power. Solange, Hayden Panettiere, Rihanna was in it. We knew people, or we know them now, whatever. But this movie was definitely an afterthought. This movie sucks. And I'm saying that in conjunction with other movies in the series, in any other context, suck, but are gems in comparison to this piece of movie. This movie has no redeemable quality. This movie, we have Carson, who is the lead cheerleader of a cheer team, as you'd be expecting. This one is the West Coast Sharks. And then there's Brooke, who is the head of another cheer squad that is the East Coast Jets. Now, these two teams are rivals within a, like, say, it's like they're in the same record company, but they're rivals with each other. It's very weird. But anyway, and they go head to head every year at their annual cheer team competition, camp, whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, in this movie, they decide to go a bit Romeo and Juliet-esque, where they have our main person fall in love with someone in the other team, whose name is Penn. And though they attempt to in some ways step away from each other due to the rivalry, their attraction for each other is something that neither of them can ignore. Eventually, though, circumstances force the two teams to come together and become one team, another cliche, so that they can put their differences aside and win the championship. And the movie ends with like a confusing and random performance by Ashley Tisdale, which I only found out later is because her sister, Jennifer Tisdale, is in the movie. So I guess that makes sense in some degree or whatever. They have her singing He Said, She Said on the weird like green screen thing again. Trippy. Even more confusing. All while they show each of the cheerleaders in front of like random landmarks around the world. Global. Worldwide we are. But yeah, this one is complete garbage. Absolutely void of any qualities that would be defensible. The music sucks. The entire like performance is equally as bad as any other of the movies, but because we don't even have like the fun of the other ones, at least those were kind of fun. Also, being that we've been touching on this particular topic throughout the movies and seeing like where we've lost the plot along the way, I would like to note that this movie is where they've seemingly given up any semblance of meaningful commentary in regards to race. Notably, Penn, the main heartthrob of the movie, is non-white. They don't specify what he is. They simply have him refer to himself as a child of immigrants, and he says random lines in Spanish, but for the life of me, I was like, this dude is Filipino, no? Like, is this not a Filipino man? And I looked it up. He is Filipino. The Philippines were colonized by Spain, so maybe some people speak Spanish. I don't know. Filipino people, would you like to opine on that? Also, as far as blackness goes in the movie, though, we have definitely devolved over the course of the movies. It's not necessarily a focus in this movie, really, at all. If you recall in the beginning of this video, I had some praise for how the movie seemed to have some scrutiny, some criticism in regards to white appropriation, and seemed to have some semblance, some modicum of respect for that issue. And I think because it was somewhat mindful of that, it seemed to be a bit careful to not fall into too many stereotypes of Black women in particular. Imagine how jarring it was for me that this movie not only gave up on that goal, but completely threw it to the wayside. Because there's one character who is one of the black sidekicks of sort, but she is notably ghetto. She's jarring, cartoonish, brash. She has an endless lexicon of niggisms, if you will. A large nigglossary.
Ain't like they can hang when a sister gets to cracking and popping her collarbone. You smell me? Oh, hell no. Your Paris Hilton. If you and this little purse dog of yours ever pull that skanky East Coast mess again, I will slice you like government cheese. I'm keeping it real, sister. Keeping it real for who?
And later, we find out that she is cartoonish on purpose because she is overcompensating for being bullied as a child when she was referred to as an Oreo. Black on the outside, white on the inside. And so to combat that, she decides to put on a persona, a nigsona.
I've been hood ratting it up ever since. Ooh, just the black girl who enunciates.
Cut the show. I'm done.
Yeah, this movie, for the most part, just treats blackness as a bit of a punchline in support of horribly cringy scenes. A lot of, just to like give us space for like racially cringe jokes for the white girls to say something along the lines of, you're not just Oreo, you're double stuffed. She's been pulling drive-bys since she was a shorty and, you know, ending sentences with faux shizzle. if you will.
You're not just an Oreo, Aisha. You double stuffed. You're wrong, Brooke. She been pulling drive-bys since she was a shorty. Yo, she was drinking 4s off the nipple. Don't be getting all up in her Kool-Aid, biatch, because I have seen what she's done to fugly swamp donkeys like you for shizzle.
But yeah, this is just kind of like finishing off or continuing the trend that was started in the last movie where there's no real interaction with blackness outside of, you know, using it as a way for our white characters to embarrass themselves. And being that this movie has no redeeming qualities, like at all, I wish I could honestly go back to a time before I knew it existed. Unfortunately, I cannot do that. So I guess we'll just go to the next one then. The fifth movie and the second straight to video release for the series is Fight to the Finish, which came out in 2009. And it is a stark pivot back towards maybe the issue of racism. I think they've kind of realized they've definitely lost the plot, but they're able to bring up this conversation by making our main character non-white for the first time in the series. First and only time in the series, actually, now that I say that. By choosing that the main character be played by none other than pop star, actress, I don't know, she did a lot of stuff, but Christina Milian. Think of this one as kind of the other side of the Hayden Panettiere one. And this one, it's a non-white girl going to this white suburb after her stepdad gets a new job, and she's forced to feel the pressure of all of that. The first thing I notice about this movie is this very distracting and very perplexing orange sepia filter that goes over several minutes of the beginning of the movie, and I was very confused by it at first. It was incredibly distracting, somehow even more distracting than the random opening dance competition she does with a bunch of cholos. I don't know. But as the story kept going, I realized, is this supposed to be like war-torn sepia? Have y'all ever noticed that whenever the United States media or any like movie in the United States shows the Middle East, they like to show them in what I refer to as like the Afghanistan filter? I sat there and I was like, please tell me that this is just a very confusing but uniform aesthetic choice of this movie. I don't know why you would do this, but please don't make it that when she goes to the suburban rich white school that you will take this filter off. Please tell me that this filter isn't meant to denote when she's in the ghetto and how her world, this like amber hue over it to let you know that she's roughing it out here. Please tell me that is not what's happening. And so before the movie could even really get started, I fast forwarded it to see if that were the case. And it was. Are you shocked? I'm not. Just disappointed. But anyway, yeah, this movie is the first that's focusing more so on the Latin American experience in the United States and how that conflicts largely with many ideals of rich whiteness. And I think probably since the first movie, this is the first one to actually have anything meaningful to even say about that. Something a bit more complex even in some places than the first movie. There are some, for instance, black people in the margins who are participating and contributing to the alienation of this girl who is Afro-Latina. Maybe even more so than the first, puts race at the center because it puts that non-white person within that hostile racial environment and navigate those dynamics, trying to integrate her black and brown friends into that space. And then there's like conflicts with her white love interest because of stereotypes of black and brown people and the quote unquote ghetto-ness of where she comes from. With that being so much of a focus, this is the most like overtly racist, I think, that any of the movies have been up until this point, because again, we're following a non-white girl being attacked for being non-white regularly. Some that I noted were saying that she quote speaks Taco Bell menu. They referred to her as Barrio Fabulous, called her mom the Mexican maid. With that said, this movie doesn't always do a great job of like combating those violent stereotypes, especially with the urban sepia thing going on. But I think one of the issues is that it differentiates her and her friends by adhering to a lot of those stereotypes. But I do feel like it's the best movie since the original to recenter the question of race and class while adding in the Latin experience in LA, which was notably missing until this. Like, there's no Hispanic people, there's no Latin people at all. As far as the movie itself, it's not terrible, it's not great. It is notably a few, like 10, 15 minutes longer than the other movies, which is a sin in and of itself. I will say notably, her and the white boy did have some chemistry. I was like, oh, wait, they actually kind of cute. Wait a second. You know, they and the music wasn't always terrible, just like half the time. So, but yeah, the sepia really f***ed me. Nearly 10 years after the last movie, and I guess presumably we thought they'd be done, but oh no.
God, please, no!
They decided to come back with the 6th movie, Bring It On Worldwide Cheersmack. Pardon. Hashtag Cheersmack, notably. And I don't know what the f this was. Like, it was, of all of them, the most incoherent of messes. It's, vaguely about cheering, vaguely about social media, vaguely about attention seeking or something on social media. First thing I noticed is that Bring It On is not a series that should be seen in Ultra HD. It's very disorienting, very jarring. It's just really weird to look at. And then the movie actually starts and it somehow gets worse. I'm going to attempt to cobble together what the movie is about. No promises. I'm not a magician. I can't do it all, you know? I can only do this so much. Unfortunately, if you hate yourself as much as I did, then you should watch it, I guess. But the movie focuses on a perplexingly popular cheer group called the Rebels. And apparently they're like known worldwide for being really good or something. There's not a whole lot of mention of like nationals the way it was in other movies, so I don't know what it is that's making them super popular. Maybe social media, they don't clarify, but whatever. And this team is led by a girl named Destiny. Destiny is arrogant, she's self-absorbed, she's not a great team player, and she's also not a fan of changing anything innovative in any way. She's very like stilted and unyielding, and feels like she always knows what's right. And one day, the Rebels are challenged by an anonymous cheer group. And when I say anonymous, I don't mean in the sense that, not just in the sense that we don't know who they are. I mean it in the sense that it's supposed to be emblematic of anonymous, as in the hacktivists, V for Vendetta face are always talking about how they gonna stop some horrible shit and then the horrible shit just keep going. These hacktivist cheerleaders issue a challenge to the Rebels that sets off again befuddling chain of events in which cheerleaders and their squads from all over the world issue a challenge to the Rebels that is called a Cheersmack. Not to get off tangent, but one of the things that'll happen a lot throughout this movie is that people speak in hashtags. They use hashtags to speak in real life. They also use hashtags as well as adding cheer to the beginning of pre-existing words to make it cheer related. Cheermiliated was one that I wrote down. There's so many, but that one was particularly egregious. Again, at your own discretion, spend your time looking into the various cheer possibilities. Again, it seems like a confusing attempt to integrate the world of Bring It On with the world of social media. It does so by insinuating, again, that people in real life don't exist. like people in real life have never seen other people and they only speak in ways as they do online. And sure, it's supposed to be funny and satirical or whatever. It just screams of like disgruntled older people with like kids of today. They don't even know how to have real conversations. That's how they kind of like make the heartthrob of this movie supposed to be so different than everybody else, because he's not like the other kids. He doesn't have social media. He's just like lives in the moment, and that's what makes him appealing to our girl. But other than that, he's just stupid, honestly. But the titular cheer smacking results in the Rebels being suddenly ostracized by the world that loved them literally 30 seconds ago. And in order to regain their status, their title, their respect, they decide to participate in this challenge, right? And go against these anonymous, they call their cheer team the Truth. And they decide to take part in returning the challenge to the truth. Anyway, the whole story is just about reminding Destiny of humility and that teamwork makes the dream work. Come to find out, the truth is led by some of her own cheermates who have grievances against her, rightfully, and they've decided to branch out and participate in a different team and ultimately betray her. By the time we get to the competition, she learns the errors of her ways and they win, and they all learn a big valuable lesson again about teamwork and living in the moment or some shit. Quick note, Vivica A. Fox is in it for some reason. She does fine because she's Vivica A. Fox. She plays some role called the Cheer Goddess, and they don't really explain her. They just kind of like put her in there and call her Cheer Goddess and just make, I guess she has a talk show of some sort that's cheer related. Again, no real explanation of any of that, so cool, I guess. As far as the reoccurring theme of race, the only thing we have is that the heartthrob is Asian. We don't really talk about it much. Well, I think the Filipino guy who was playing Latino was Asian as well. But yeah, this guy is like obviously Asian. Side note, I think he's really cute. I like guys with long hair. They didn't really have much chemistry though, him and the girl, like at all. But oh, he also has a sidekick who's black. It's definitely more so focused on the social media aspects and like criticisms around that. But yeah, with that said, this movie is terrible, like really bad. Again, in comparison to the other already terrible movies, this one is definitely giving like Bring It On meets Riverdale. It's just like an incoherent mess. The trials and tribulations of high school football type energy. It's horrible. It's horrible delivery, horrible pacing. A bunch of shit just be happening, but the only good thing about it is, again, I think the main guy is kind of cute. Again, I like long hair. What can I say?
Many days have passed, including New Year's. I am just now sober enough to sit upright, and I feel it's only appropriate to now talk about the
murderously interesting.
I need to make a killer joke. A stabbing good time. Bring It On, Cheer or Die, 2022. This is the most recent of all of the Bring It Ons, as well as the most experimental genre-wise. It's not the same like we're cheering for a competition. Who's gonna be the baddest? They decided to add an element of horror, which, hey, I don't hate it. It's not great, because none of them are really, but like, hey, at least, especially after watching 6 other movies, it was a nice change of pace to add a horror element. Is it stupid? Absolutely. But, you know, a lot of camp is, and that's why we love it. So, not hating on it at all. So this movie follows the Diablos, a cheerleading team that has long been banned from participating in any substantial way in competitive cheerleading because they've been banned from doing risky tumbling like pyramid work for over 20 years now. This is because 20 years ago, one of the cheerleaders died in a freak accident, and instead of like doing safety protocols, they just said, F it, we're not doing it anymore. So current day, or 2022 at least, we see head cheerleader Abby, who suggests that all of them go practice in this dangerous abandoned school to practice doing tumbling work. This is, again, banned by their school, so they're doing it in secret without anyone knowing, only to find that there is actually a murderer loose on the inside. Spoiler, because I'm sure you're gonna watch it. The murders in question, more gruesome than I expected. I didn't know what I was really expecting. It left me shook. I was like, oh, somebody got caught in a bear trap. One was particularly visceral. A girl got choked out with a blood pressure cuff and her hand cut off with like a letter cutter. I was like, oh, inventive, weird, strange, off-putting. But again, didn't see that coming. Spoiler, because again, I knew you were gonna watch it. The murderers inside are actually people in the group of cheerleaders, but they are the nieces of the cheerleader that died 20 years ago. They want to avenge their aunt who was killed in the pyramid, right? Come to find out, she was killed on purpose by a woman who was in the a girl that was in the cheer team. And come to find out, that woman is Abby, the head cheerleader's mom. So this is like generations long revenge of the dead cheerleaders. And yeah, basically the movie ends with them going to nationals, because that's the priority, right? And they're cheering and they just like deuce up the dead friends that died at the beginning. It's very stupid, but again, stupid in a way that's different than the other one, so I kind of applaud it for that, if no other reason. But you know, all things considered, I don't mind it. Unironically would watch it again, weirdly enough, and I can't say that about all of these movies. Actually, I can say it about very few of these movies, so congratulations, cheer or die. So for those of you that have wasted as much time as I have, just the exorbitant amount of time I've wasted on Bring It On, you may have noticed that I am skipping the yet to be mentioned Bring It On musical. And shocker, I will not be watching that. For those of you that are familiar with my channel, you know I don't love musicals. Not a musical fan. Also, quite frankly, don't want to watch more Bring It On. I don't want to do that. And this is like canon, but not a movie. Also, the only renditions I could find were non-originals. It was all like actual teenagers performing, and I just felt like it was weird to use that as the basis of whether or not I like this. But if you happen to know where I can watch like an official rendition of the musical, keep it to yourself. I don't want to watch it. But that's the option for you if you would like to see that. Go off, sis. Last but not least, it is time for an official ranking from me, because of course that's super official. Now, having seen all 7 movies, I feel as though I can kind of place where the most watchable ones were. Ones that I would want to see again, some that were campy, but you know, they tickled me, okay? And so there's no real cohesive parameter for why I'm doing this ranking, but this is Bring It On. Nothing has to make sense. It didn't up until this point, so let's go. So I think it's not shocking that the best Bring It On is gonna be the original Bring It On. It's the only one that's an actual movie. It's even with this campiness, it still like took itself relatively seriously in that it has like a structure of film. As we start to go along, most of the movies just turn into extended montages with no real point or message or really anything it wanted to convey other than just weirdly just racist shit, honestly. And it got very tired after a while, but the original movie actually had something substantive to say. And also like viewing wise, I still don't love it, admittedly. I'm not going to sit here and lie about that, but it is a classic, I think, for a reason, and in many ways it was ahead of its time, so there's that. My second is going to be, weirdly enough, even though I just said that, gonna be All or Nothing, the campy mess with Hayden Panettiere. Why? It's a camp mess, and I have never reacted so viscerally to film. I never expected to feel so much visceral cringe as I did watching that movie, but it was still campy enough that it felt purposeful, right? It felt like it was doing it on purpose, whereas other films are kind of cringy and I don't think they meant to. Under that, or possibly tied, I still haven't decided, but possibly tied for that is Fight to the Finish, the Christina Milian one. Again, outside of the tumbleweed orange sepia, I think there was something unique to this movie because it had an interesting viewpoint on race. It flipped the Hayden Panettiere one and put Afro-Latina girl in the middle of a white space and how she has trouble navigating because of that. And it felt just more important. Actually, no, let's move Fight to the Finish ahead of All or Nothing, because All or Nothing is just camp mess, but Fight to the Finish again felt like it had something to say. Was it aggressive watching all the racism? Speaking Taco Bell menu is insane. Like, that is an insane thing to say, but it also felt realistic. It felt likely. After that, I'm gonna say Cheer or Die. Again, campy and different from the other movies, which is at that point is all I was asking for. Also, though it's not great, it did get a few unironic laughs from me. Like it legitimately made me laugh on purpose. And that's something that most of these movies have yet to do. After that, I'm gonna say Bring It On again, largely because I don't remember it. And in some ways, that's a good thing. I don't remember shit that happened in that movie. After that, I'm gonna say In It to Win It, had no redeemable qualities. It was just a mess. And then under that, Cheersmack, unintelligible. I don't know what the that was. So that's the ranking bid. All right, so final round off this video. Many hours, I will never get back. You should like this video because I'm guilting you to like this video. I've seen so many things. I don't want to see anyone cheer or say the word cheer ever again. But yeah, that's the video. I kind of want to do this a lot though this year, because all my complaints aside, this was actually really fun talking about a bunch of movies at the same time, because some movies just don't need their own video. Some series need their own video. So with that said, happy this video could accompany you. Maybe you can watch another one. I've done a bunch of them, Bad Movies in the Beat, whole series. I think it's over 150 videos now of me talking about shit. You'll never be done. Challenge yourself. I'm issuing a challenge to you. You're no quitter. Click on a video somewhere. I'm sorry. I have a mental image that won't leave. No,
yeah, just like lobster tail sticking out of motherfucking pockets.
I was
like
thinking literally like bare hands holding chicken wings.
yo, like
Yeah, they come.
hey,
That's
listen,
like, yo, bro, what are you
mommy.
doing?
Shrimp tail out your mouth, nigga. It's free back here. That's the end of the video.